Good evening, YouTubers in the world of EB the Original Master. I am back with the second segment of the new episode of SpongeBob that aired today at 10 o'clock in the morning, Lost and Found. Again, thank you, Squidward with Hair, for providing this episode link on your Google Drive. So I just got finished watching Lost and Found, and to be honest, this episode right here wasn't as great as The Getaway, but it was, I guess, all right. I guess, but there were some cons that I have to had with the episode. But since it's 9 o'clock at night, I might as well upload this video tomorrow. Then how about that? So yeah, let's get started with the review for Lost and Found from SpongeBob, the segment after The Getaway. So basically, this whole episode is basically a Lost and Found related episode. So it starts off with a customer in the Krusty Krab who is staring at Squidward. So this one particular customer has to stare very creepily with his drool coming out of his mouth. I thought that was pretty disgusting. And so Squidward then asks SpongeBob to make him his Krabby Patty. So SpongeBob made a terrible pun saying, "Coming right down, Squidward." So Squidward comes from the window, finds a Krabby Patty stuck on the ceiling, and then the Krabby Patty falls and he gives it to the customer. Now let's move on to the biggest pet peeve of this episode. So this entire episode is about a kid crying because he lost his favorite toy. So basically this is the episode is SpongeBob going into this unknown lost and found in the Krusty Krab so he can go and get the toy back and give it to this one kid who's constantly crying throughout this entire episode. And that was my biggest problem. This kid cried throughout the entire episode, which was the biggest pet peeve because I thought it was very annoying. And so, yes, Mr. Krabs happily had a secret lost and found that was never been mentioned. And so Mr. Krabs takes him onto the lost and found for him to go find this toy for this kid so he won't stop crying. So Simone goes into the lost and found, turns on the light switch, turns out it's a lot bigger than it was. And then he finds a box full of all these knickknacks and whatnot. So he finds the teddy bear. And then he ends up getting lost in the lost and found. So how do you get lost in the lost and found? That absolutely kind of doesn't make any sense, but yeah, that's how it does. So SpongeBob finds a whole bunch of things in the lost and found, and then yes, he found a whole bunch of these knickknacks and toys, lost toys, and all this weird stuff going on. And yes, so while he was going to the lost and found, he was stepping on these whoopee cushions, which was another fart gag, I believe. That's supposed to be like a fart gag, I guess. That wasn't too funny because that's childish humor. So, SpongeBob gets lost in the lost and found. He finds these three other people who are actually trapped in the Krusty Krab for 60 years. These three other kids who were somehow got lost in the Krusty Krab for 60 years, and they ended up in the lost and found as well. So apparently, these three random people who's been in the Krusty Krab for 60 years randomly happened to find SpongeBob. And then, so what happened was that they were having like a little tea party with gum and candies until they took the teddy fish that SpongeBob needed to bring back to the kid who was crying above the restaurant. So they said that it doesn't belong to him anymore since they found it. They will keep it. They kept saying finders keepers, finders keepers. Finished the punchline saying losers weepers. Runs out of the lost and found, leaving those three kids chasing after SpongeBob. So then we go back to the kid crying again, obviously, because I don't know what were they thinking. I don't know what were the others in the recording studio were thinking when they were making this episode. But I honestly thought the crying was very annoying, and they should have never added that into this episode. So Squidward gets thrown into the lost and found by Mr. Krabs. He finds a kazoo. We have a flashback of Squidward as a kid playing on his kazoo. This kind of almost reminded me of the poem that Patrick said in the Sing a Song of Patrick episode where Patrick read the poem. It kind of reminded me of that, of a flashback of when they were kids. It was alright. It was called Bikini Bottom School instead of elementary school. I mean, seriously, you can't just call it school. You gotta be more specific. It has to be an elementary school since Squidward was a little kid. So then Squidward plays on the kazoo, and then that's when SpongeBob is out being chased by the kids on these little bicycles. They're like throwing like jacks and toys at SpongeBob. So SpongeBob found lost toys, lost toilets, a lost world, and it kind of reminded me of Sonic Lost World, but it wasn't. It was like a prehistoric dinosaur Stone Age. And for some unknown reason, when the kids like fell on top of each other, they blew up. And when they like got into a crash, they blew up also. This episode had some really weird explosion scenes. So, Mr. Krabs then cries too because he realized that SpongeBob is lost and found. So both the kid and Mr. Krabs is crying. I don't know why, but yeah, I don't find that hilarious at all. So let's go over to the ending. So SpongeBob comes out of the lost and found safe and sound. He then finds... No. I'm going way out of hand. I forgot to talk about the grease trap part. So SpongeBob finds a grease trap that he hasn't cleaned out in years, and that's how SpongeBob escaped from the lost and found. He gives the kid back the fish. The kid doesn't want the toy fish anymore. He wants to hang out with this dinosaur thing that he found in the lost world. So everybody lived happily ever after, except for Squidward. So Squidward was trapped in the lost and found at the very ending. Very funny. Yeah, so that was lost and found. This episode was alright, but that kid crying really made me put this episode as a meh. Because the only cons about this entire episode was the kid crying. I don't know why they thought it was cool to add that, but I thought this episode could have been a little bit better if they focused on a different plot rather than a missing toy. I mean, it could have been a whole episode. It could have been a whole episode dedicated to all these Bikini Bottomies losing their things, and they all go into the lost and found. This episode should have had more characters. Sandy should have been in it. They could have at least had Patrick in it. In fact, Patrick wasn't in any of these episodes. He wasn't in the Getaway or Lost and Found. I guess they needed a break from Patrick. So my rating for Lost and Found will be a 7 out of 10 because it really wasn't as great as the Getaway. It was alright, but that kid crying really made me annoyed. I really wish that Nickelodeon should have never added that to the storyboard, but hey, it's their episode and they can do whatever they want. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed my review for Lost and Found. I'll have this video out tomorrow, Sunday, June 11th, and hope you guys have an awesome day, and I guess I'll see you guys next time. Sayonara.